In this video, we're going to be taking notes on solving proportions on a Kami document. You get to Kami through Canvas. That's where you're going to access this notes page. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to click this T, which is for text box, and choose the color you want to write with. And then I want you to record your first and last name at the top. Once you've recorded your name, go ahead and go over to the markup tool. Choose the color you want to highlight in and click the text highlighter up here at the top. And I'm going to highlight the word proportion. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to type in the definition of proportion. So I go back to the text box and choose the color I want to use. And a proportion is when you have two equal fractions. Two equal fractions. And I'm going to move this up a little bit. I'll move this up a little bit, and I actually want these to be a little bit larger, so I'm going to go over to 14 and change it to 16. And change this to, let's go with 24. Ooh, too much. All right, 18 looks good to me, so I'm going to stick with 18. All right, so proportion is when you have two equal fractions. If you know that two fractions are, so we're going to continue typing, equal, and you have a missing numerator or denominator. So look down here. We have two equal fractions. 1/3 is equal to 4 over x. And then you have a missing numerator or denominator. So here, look in this example, you have a missing denominator. Here you have a missing numerator. Here you have a missing numerator. And here you have a missing denominator right here. You can use, and here's the first method, scaling. I've done some examples with scaling. Or you can use cross multiplication. Cross multiplication to solve the proportion. All right, so as you're typing that, let me read it one more time. If you know that two fractions are equal and you have a missing numerator or denominator, you can use scaling or cross multiplication to solve the proportion. We're going to start by using the scaling method, then we're going to look at the cross multiplication method. So here's some notes about the scaling method. So I'm going to use a different color. You can scale up by multiplying so you can scale up by multiplying both the numerator and denominator by the same number. So I'm going to highlight that part, that's important. So I'm going to highlight it in red. By the same number, that's very important. So you can scale up by multiplying both the numerator and denominator by the same number. Or you can scale, I got to go back to the text, down by dividing. I'll just move those a little bit so it looks better. Both the numerator and denominator by the same number. We're going to highlight that too. All right, so let me show you what I mean. And for this part, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to grab the drawing tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look from 1 to 4. From 1 to 4, did we increase or did we decrease? And I'm going to actually change the color to red. From 1 to 4, we increased. So if we're moving up, we should be multiplying. So what do we multiply 1 by to get to 4? We multiply 1 by 4. So we also multiply 3 by 4 to get what x equals. So x equals 12. So I'll write it over here. x is equal to 12. So we just solved the proportion by scaling. This is the first method we're looking at. Number 2, 70 over 50 is equal to x over 5. So think about it. How do you go from 50 to 5? Did we go up or down? Increase or decrease? From 50 to 5, that's a decrease. 5 is smaller than 50. So if you decrease, we're going to be dividing. 50 divided by what number gives you 5? Well, 50 divided by 10 gives you 5. Well, you have to divide the 70 by that same number to keep this fraction equivalent to this fraction. So 70 divided by 10 is 7. So we solve and we get x equals 7. So we just solve by scaling. Number 3, how do we go from 2 to 14? Well, we are scaling up, so that would be multiplication. So we multiply by 7. And then we also multiply 5 by 7, and we get x to equal 35. So we just solved this proportion. We solved for x using scaling. Finally, number 4, from 11 to 1, that's a decrease. So we're going to be dividing. Well, what do you divide 11 by to get 1? You divide 11 by 11. Now you have to divide both the numerator and denominator by the same number. So I'm also going to divide 99 by that same number, 11. These numbers need to be the same. And I get x equals 9. So that's the pattern with scaling, is you're either going up and multiplying by the same number, or you're decreasing, so you're dividing by the same number. It's important that you divide both the denominator and numerator by the same number, and you multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the same number, so that the new fraction is equivalent to the original fraction. So now that we've used the scaling method to solve proportions, now we're going to use the cross multiplication method. And we only have 2 examples here on our notes. Step 1 for using the cross multiplication method is to make sure it's proportion. So we have an equal sign, we have a missing variable, so we can apply cross multiplication. So I'm going to, I'm going to change colors. So let me hit the undo button up here. Where is that? Oh, undo is right there. And I'm going to change colors for this cross multiplication work. So cross multiplication is going to be in purple for me. Then I'm going to multiply across, and I'm going to draw an equal sign, and remember we need parentheses on each side. Now I'm going to make one of the parentheses pretty large because I have to be able to fit 104 inside. And then I'll use a different color to fill it in. So on this side we're going to multiply the 8 by the x. And then on the other side, we're going to be multiplying the 7 by the 104. Then we're going to go ahead and show the work for 104 times 7. 4 times 7 is 28, so you put the 8 below, the 2 goes above. 0 times 7 is 0, plus 2 is 2. And then 1 times 7 is 7. So the product is 728. And then over here, 8 times x is 8x. All right, so we completed step 2. We cross-multiplied, and we ended up with something that looks like 42 equals 7x. We have 8x equals 728. And we're on to step 3, divide both sides by the coefficient. The coefficient of x is 8. So we're going to divide both sides by 8. All right, so we slide the 8 over, and then we place the numerator inside the house, the 728. If you think of it like horse and rider, remember the rider can go on the inside of the house, but the horse has to stay outside the house. 8 goes into 72 9 times. 9 times 8 is 72. 72 minus 72 is 0. We can't ask the question again until we bring down a number. 8 goes into 8 how many times? 1 time. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. There's no numbers to bring down. So we've finished this. 728 divided by 8, we get 91. And over here, 8 divided by 8 equals 1, so we're left with 1x, which is the same thing as x. Over here on number 6, we're going to apply cross multiplication. This is the last problem we're going to do. And I'm going to start this time by drawing in my parentheses. I meant to draw the parentheses first before anything else. So I draw the parentheses. Step 1 says, is this a proportion? We're looking for an equal sign. There is an equal sign. And there's two fractions. Remember, a proportion is when you have two equal fractions. We're also missing a variable. So when we have a fraction equals a fraction, or we're missing a variable, this is when we can apply the cross multiplication method. So now I'm going to grab a different color and I'm going to multiply across. So I'm going to multiply 9 by x, that will go on one side. And then I'm going to multiply 5 times 153 on this other side. And then I'll show my work for 153 times 5 up here. 3 times 5 is 15. I put a 5 here, carry the 1. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 is 26. Put the 6 there, carry the 2. 1 times 5 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So our product, which is, remember, the result of a multiplication problem, is 765. And 9 times x is 9x. So we've completed step 2, which is the cross multiplication step. We're ready for step 3, which is divide both sides by the coefficient. This is just like when we're talking about one-step equations. 9 and x are separated by multiplication. The inverse is division. And the number we're trying to get rid of is the 9, so that's why we divide by that coefficient 9. On the right side, 9 divided by 9 equals 1, so we're left with 1x, which is the same thing as x. And then we need to take 765 and divide it by 9. 9 goes into 7 0 times. 9 goes into 76 8 times. 9 times 8 is 72. We subtract, we get 4. You can't ask the question until you bring the 5 down, or you bring a number down. 9 goes into 45 5 times. 5 times 9 is 45, so we subtract 45. We get 0, and there's no more numbers to bring down. So 765 divided by 9 is 85. So x is equal to 85. So let's make sense of this. If I were to plug in for x 85, that would mean that 153 over 85 is equivalent to 9/5. So we solved this proportion using cross multiplication. We found what x was equal to. Over here, if you plug in 91 for x, we know that 91 over 104 is equal to 7/8. We were able to solve for x using cross multiplication. So we just went over two methods for solving a proportion. Scaling is one method. The second method is cross multiplication. Both methods allow you to solve a proportion so you find the missing value.